Hey guys, T2RX6 here, back for another Transformers review. And today we're going to be looking at a knockoff Generation 1 Browning, which was made by Takara. And while I'm thinking about it, I actually heard back from iGear on the PP01U, and they are going to send me the parts so he can be fixed. So that's pretty cool. I guess I'll keep you updated on that for when they come. But I said in the last video that this guy is one of the 80s KO Transformers, one of those high quality KOs that look pretty much identical to the real thing. As a size comparison, here he is next to one of the modern knockoff versions of the G1 Megatron. I got that off some website for like $20. The quality's okay, but it does look good in the gun mode. But Browning here is a much smaller gun than Megatron. Now, unfortunately with his age, some of the clips on his legs broke, so he doesn't clip in quite well enough. But it's good nonetheless. He's got some nice detailing on the handle. The insignias, the barrel is pretty convincing. Now, if you ever had a G1 Megatron, you know at the top he had the little slot to put the peg in, and when you, of course, when you pull the trigger, it activates the little spring mechanism inside. Maybe you can see it like this. It activates the little mechanism inside to shoot the pellet out. And Browning doesn't have that kind of feature. Basically because of the way he transforms. Also, unlike Megatron, you do have the weaponry that goes on Browning, but you also have fists, and Browning has 4 fists, but I only have 2 of them, but it's not a big deal. You really only need 2 of them, and yeah, so he's got parts that are more easy to lose because they're not self-contained like Megatron. But it does give possibly the coolest feature, which is that you can plug in the fist and pull the trigger and fire it, which is kind of cool. I think it's neat that you can pull the trigger and shoot his fist at people. That's pretty much it for the gun mode. Pretty detailed gun mode. You know, pretty small. Fun to carry around. Not outside. Don't carry it outside. Because it is pretty convincing that it could be something real. But pretty nice little gun mode, especially when you compare him to the size of the G1 Megatron. So let's take him to the bot mode here. And this is where I think it's pretty cool, because he's a fairly small robot who actually gets quite a bit of size, and it's not a direct transformation like you would expect with Megatron. Now you have to pull these little front sections out, if I can. We will see. Yep, here we go. And the back section. And rotate this, and then there you go. You've got Browning in his robot mode, and he's got some limited articulation. Can't really do much with the legs, but the arms will do a full 360, and then you just plug in the 2 different types. He's got one that's just a peg, plugs into the rear of the gun, and then one that has the spring loaded, and the trigger doesn't work here. You can see that when you pull it, it pulls this little red piece. If you want to launch the spring or the gun, you gotta activate the spring activated mechanism on the side. I'm sorry, I said gun, but I meant fist. And then of course you can plug in his weaponry. He also has shoulder ports if you don't really like it in his fist there. You can plug it on to the top, but I prefer it on his fist. And he's still a small little robot. Oops. I'm launching my fist at myself. But, you know, considering he was so small to start, it's a pretty decent size. I'll just do the G1 Megatron here just as a size comparison. And I might as well do that one on camera. I don't really recommend this knockoff so much. It's not bad if you just want a Megatron in your collection, but it is a very cheap knockoff, and you'll see he's got super floppy legs that really don't want to hold at all. And I'm struggling to remember how to transform this guy because I just keep him in his gun mode all the time. The other mode's just really not very good in my opinion. And we gotta take these out. And see where you had Megatron has his fists, his fists inside that you just are on a slide out joint there. It's just one less piece to lose, which is pretty nice, but totally something that if you're careful with, I guess doesn't really matter too much. And plug all this stuff in, and extend out. This leg is not extended enough. You can see that this just all flops around on this knockoff Megatron, and someday when I can find it for a decent price, I hope I can get a real Generation 1 Megatron. But every time I've tried to pick one up, I've always missed it by a few dollars. But even then, I don't even know if it'll be much better than this. And you can see Megatron just kind of flops around, floppy legs. It's just not a very good knockoff. I'm going to take off his fusion cannon here because it's not doing me any favors. Yeah, I don't recommend this particular Megatron because this is about as good as he's going to get. And Browning next to him, you know, he's a bit smaller, but, you know, it was also a gun that was less than half the size of Megatron. And frankly, I really like this Browning. You know, I think he's a really cool little knockoff. Certainly better than a knockoff Megatron who's super loose and just wants to fall over. Even the leg, like everything about, and I know this knockoff is, you know, pretty much the same thing as a G1 Megatron, except maybe his legs, I'm hoping, would be a little more secure, but Megatron just doesn't even look as good as Browning. I mean, Browning's got thicker legs than Megatron. Maybe they're not that much thicker, but the fact that he's smaller makes it look better. Yeah, I mean, the upper waist section is more convincing, or the chest section, I should say, is more convincing than Megatron's. He's got no awkwardly positioned front tip of the barrel. Everything about it, I just think, looks better than this Megatron. And for an old knockoff, he does have a little bit of metal, mostly on the leg joints around here and the feet. When you get up to the top, it's just a chromed plastic all the way through. But it's nice. It's a great little knockoff, and certainly cheaper than finding a real Browning, but still not a terribly cheap knockoff. But if you can find him, I think he's worth having in your collection if you're a G1 collector, because he's just a really cool little guy. So that's pretty much all I've got. Short little review. This is T2RX6. I'll talk to you guys later.